There's this interesting quote from, I think, Abraham Lincoln that always stuck with me. It was when he said that Shohei Ohtani will go down as the greatest to ever do it, from an on-field standpoint, but also from an off-the-field human standpoint on life. He is greatly respected and will earn the respect of billions. I know the whole Emancipation Proclamation thing, and that's deservingly his most notable achievement, but Abe Lincoln's take and prediction on Ohtani has got to be up there as the most underrated accomplishments by the 16th President of the United States, or of any president. Ironically, though, Shohei Ohtani almost single-handedly changed a lot of the way we look at America's pastime by being the best on a non-American team. I mean, the whole point of Major League Baseball, at least originally, is that it was an American league, like a league based in the United States of America, and it is still kinda for the most part. Major League Baseball, along with other leagues, definitely want to expand to other countries, but it's mainly still an American-based league, the country where Abe Lincoln said what he said. Yet Ohtani, a Japanese superstar, very well could have played in an American-based league while representing the country of Canada. Wrap your head around that one. I mean, it led to the entire country of Canada saying this:
"You're on the verge of greatness. We were this close."
So welcome, and if you're part of the 70% of viewers not subscribed yet, come aboard and join the wonderful people who are subscribed to the channel if you enjoy the videos, as how exactly did we get here? To Canada feeling played. How is the team even in a position to be on the verge of getting Shohei Ohtani anyway? Well, let's go back to 2019, where the Baby Jays are starting to form, as somehow the Blue Jays were ending up with either a Hall of Fame or a great former player's son, or a really good current player's brother. Maybe they struck deals with these guys that they would end up with their kids, I don't know, but you had Bo Bichette, son of Dante Bichette, Cavan Biggio, son of Hall of Famer Craig Biggio, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., brother of Yuli Gurriel Jr., and last but certainly not least, another legendary Hall of Famer, Vladimir Guerrero Sr., that dude who basically swung at every pitch and somehow hit all of them. He gave birth at one point to a son, and that's where you get Vladimir Guerrero Jr., because that's how that stuff works. He didn't come out of the womb looking like that, at least I don't think, but he looked like that now, and was part of the hyped up core the Jays were building for the future. They'd go on to make the fake playoffs in 2020, which was their first postseason appearance since 2016, but 2021 was when things truly went underway with this new core and vision of how the Blue Jays organization views them moving forward. Before the year even began, they'd signed free agent outfielder George Springer, so right then and there you realize this was a new era in Toronto. To add a veteran star like that to complement your young team meant that they meant business moving forward, and they definitely did some business in 2021. The Blue Jays almost had the American League MVP and Cy Young Award winner on their team. They ended up having the Cy Young Award winner in Robbie Ray, who would have a pretty incredible year on an overall solid Blue Jays pitching staff. The Blue Jays offense as a whole was pretty great, led by Vladdy Jr., who made his run for the MVP award, missing just one game all year and putting up incredible numbers, almost connecting for 50 home runs, as he was a legitimate monster at the plate. Unfortunately for him, he didn't pitch, so he didn't win the award like Shohei Ohtani did, and the Blue Jays, despite winning the most games they ever have since 2016, would just miss out on the postseason on the very final day. It was tough, but with the improvements that had been made in 2021, the leaps and clear potential that was shown, there of course was a ton of hype heading into 2022. Not only did the Jays add another hitter to their lineup and great defensive third baseman and Matt Chapman from Oakland, but they also went out and got Kevin Gausman in the rotation to replace Robbie Ray, with a group of starters that already had guys like Jose Barrios, who the team traded for in the middle of 2021, Alek Manoah, who showed a ton of promising potential after his call-up in 2021. It was a solid group. So before the season began, Vladdy Jr. was really feeling the hype himself as well, referring to the year before as the trailer and the upcoming season as the movie. I remember the 2022 Blue Jays lineup being looked at as something that could potentially be the best of all time, or at least in that sort of a conversation. It was so elite, at least on the surface from an on-paper perspective. And it was very good. The vast majority of the lineup had good numbers. Vladdy Jr. may not have been what he was in 2021, but he was still good, and the pitching picked right up where it left off the year before. Kevin Gausman made it easy to not miss Robbie Ray. Same went for Alek Manoah, who went as far as to finish in the Cy Young voting conversation and even became someone opposing players hated with his big personality on the mound. Bro was challenging Garrett Cole to fights. I mean, the 2022 Blue Jays were pretty wild. They only won one more game than they did in 2021, but that was enough to bump them up from 4th place to 2nd place and host the wildcard round at home. A round that would end in heartbreaking fashion, with the Jays losing both games and blowing a big lead in the second to get swept by Seattle. 2023 was a bit of a step back. After trading away Lourdes Gurriel Jr. before the year, the Jays finished third in the division and had 3 less wins than the year before. Now, none of that would be a step back if they went deeper into the postseason. I mean, look at what the Diamondbacks ended up doing. Unfortunately for the Blue Jays, they would only go as deep as Jack Handy's deep thoughts went, giving Minnesota their first postseason win and series win in 250 years, getting swept again in the wildcard round, this time on the road. Disappointing way for the year to end again, basically the same way to the year before, and it was also not great to see Vladdy Jr. decline even more. He was a very good player, solid, but nowhere near what was expected of him after what he had done a couple years before. But the Jays looked at things and said, okay, they still have most of the core, the baby Jays that are meant to lead this franchise to the promised land. They should be fine, including Vladdy, and that's when they looked for the ultimate move to push this team and franchise forward. There were some teams interested in signing Shohei Ohtani that nobody batted an eye for. Everyone knew the Dodgers would be in it, same with the Giants, even though nobody actually thought the Giants would get him, other than me, but most realized it probably just wouldn't happen. But then the Blue Jays came up, and I think for the most part, when the Blue Jays were brought up, people didn't really take it that seriously, other than I guess Toronto fans and the entire country of Canada. But I don't know if anyone really truly looked at the Blue Jays as a potential frontrunner for Shohei Ohtani. It just didn't really feel like it was in the cards until that day. That day that will go down in history. December 8, 2023, when the entire world believed that Shohei Ohtani was a Toronto Blue Jay. On the morning of December 8, 2023, John Morosi, the reporter, reported that Ohtani was not only close to making a decision on where he will sign, but that signing later that same day was a distinct possibility, while adding that the Blue Jays were a finalist in the running. And because of the modern day we live in and the fact that literally nothing you do is private, fans were able to track a private jet that was flying from Southern California to Toronto. And that same afternoon, Morosi would report that it was indeed Ohtani and not Taylor Swift on that jet heading to Toronto, about to meet with the team. So of course the baseball world was losing its mind, and this felt like it was real. It felt like it was the beginning of a big new era for Toronto, for the entire country of Canada. As most of you of course know, Toronto is the only baseball team Canada has. So you basically have an entire country backing one team in this sense. Now yes, Canada doesn't even have like 40 million people, so it's not like you have a massive country following one team, but you still have an entire country with a good amount of people backing one franchise for baseball, one big culture. And the idea of Ohtani, who is more than just a baseball player, as he's also literally a celebrity, becoming the face of Canadian baseball and being one of the most famous people representing the country as a whole, was kind of cool to think about. And also, think about this. Everything the Blue Jays had been doing over the last few years had been leading up to this. The gathering of the baby Jays, the acquisitions and signings of pitchers, making the postseason for the first time in a while, to now cap it off with getting the most talented baseball player in the history of the world. I mean, that's top tier team building, at least in theory. Not only for on the field, but like I said, just potentially putting yourself at the top of most notable franchises in sports, with Ohtani being as big as he is. This was a massive deal. So here's Shohei Ohtani. Wee, look at me, I'm Shohei Ohtani on a plane. So everyone is freaking out and going nuts, getting ready for what's going to happen when the plane lands, only to then find out that this wasn't even real. There was a private jet flying to Toronto, but Shohei Ohtani, as you see here, was not real, because Ohtani was not in fact actually on a plane. The man was on the ground back at his Southern California home, kicking it with his little dog. I don't know who Morosi's sources were, nobody does, but he clearly got screwed over somehow, and every other reporter started coming out confirming that the plane report was fake. It was Taylor Swift on it, and Ohtani was in fact in California, not having signed with anybody yet. And the very next day, Shohei Ohtani continued to stay in Southern California, and it's where he'll continue to be for at least the next decade, signing with the Los Angeles Dodgers for the biggest contract in sports history. So basically the entire country of Canada goes from thinking there's about to be a big change for the better happening for baseball there, only for it to end up being false. The Blue Jays don't add anybody that noteworthy over the offseason, and they fall back as far as they have in years in 2024. Now, were the Blue Jays expected to be one of the best teams in baseball this year? Were they expected to be better than in-division teams like the Orioles and Rays necessarily? No. But were they expected to be in last place in the division and toward the bottom of baseball as a whole? No, it's been really bad, far worse than anyone would have thought. Now, Vladdy Jr., despite still not going back to his 2021 year self where he would have been the MVP if not for who we thought for a moment was going to be his teammate, He's still been good. One of the best first basemen in the game and an all-star for the 4th straight year. Great. But what isn't great is literally every single other part of this team. I remember going into the 2022 season thinking the Blue Jays might easily have the best offense in baseball, and I wasn't nearly alone on that. I mean, from top to bottom, it had potential to be a complete juggernaut. And they did end up having a great offense that year when winning 92 games. Now, nobody was an MVP candidate or anything like that, but everyone in the regular lineup, other than 2 players, had well above average seasons offensively, and they were tied with Atlanta for the 2nd highest OPS in all of baseball, just behind the Dodgers. In 2023, last year, that kind of went down a little bit. They still had a good offense, but instead of tied for number 2 in the league type dominance at the plate, the Jays were knocked down to number 11. Again, not bad. They still made the postseason last year, but it was also a bit of a step back. And as for 2024, this has basically been Blue Jays fans in a nutshell this year watching this team, most notably the offense.
What the fuck, y'all? God damn! God damn! God damn!
What?
Fuck! Fuck!
As a team, the OPS is down to 21st in the league. They're a bottom 5 team in home runs. They're top 5 in striking out. I mean, it's been dreadful, and this is just on the surface. Individually, players are having the worst years of their careers. It's the complete opposite of 2022. Instead of just 2 players in the lineup having below average seasons offensively, only 2 players in the lineup have above average seasons offensively this year. That's right, the vast majority of the starters in the lineup are not hitting. That includes Bo Bichette, who's been abysmal at the plate. It really can't get any worse. The only regular guys with above average seasons so far are Vladdy Jr. and Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. For what Falefa is and what his expectations are, he's by far exceeded them. But as far as Vladdy goes, even though he's basically having the best season on the team, that's of course not a high bar at all, and it's still kind of just concerning to see how much less productive he is than he was in 2021, a year that I think everyone assumed would fit how he is overall, not just for 1 year. So even though he's still having a good year, Vladdy Jr. has been disappointing, Bo Bichette has been as bad as it gets, and as for the other baby J, Cavan Biggio was so bad too that he had to get released, getting picked up by the Dodgers. He's not even in Toronto. I think it's fair to call George Springer a bust for the Blue Jays at this point. His main issue has been staying on the field healthy and consistently, while also putting up declining numbers each year. He's been nothing close to what we saw in Houston. The offense really is bad. I mean, everything is taking a step back, including a pitching staff that had been real good. About a year and a half ago, a lot of people, including me, were deeming Alek Manoah one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. And after his insane fall off last year, nothing's changed this year. If anything, it's only getting worse. The dude's barely keeping it together in single and AAA. The rest of the pitching just isn't the same. They're 24th in ERA, 24th in strikeouts, meaning the Jays have the 7th lowest amount of strikeouts. I guess they have some sort of fascination with the number 24 because they're also number 24 for batting average against. So they have the 7th highest batting average against in baseball. It's just not good. You get the point. People are crushing them. The entire team has fallen off so far from what was expected for them. This was supposed to be a next level offense, a next level team with an elite core, all of a sudden being complemented by one of the most popular and talented athletes in the world. Canada was about to legitimately rule baseball. This was it. This was their time to really make a statement. But instead, they get Shohei Ohtani hitting home runs against them as a Dodger in Toronto as the fans boo, George Springer being a massive disappointment, and worst of all, the baby Jays core absolutely falling apart as the team falls further into last place. I mean, that was the most important part of all this, the young group they were building that just has not worked out the way anyone had hoped or planned it to. Man, this is the longest batch of trailers I've ever seen before a movie. It's intriguing to think about what could have been for baseball in Canada if things went right. What would have happened throughout the course of history if Ohtani did sign there and the team was better? It would have never been the same in a good way. But because they didn't go right, now it's time to just think about how long this next rebuild will take for the franchise as they watch the rest of their division win and Ohtani do his thing elsewhere. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.